what's jumping out to you? What are you seeing as you kind of look over this heat map?
I guess the fact that we all seem quite similar overall in what we've marked as orange, and I think it's mainly sort of the strategy part, is it? That's your strategy that's the cooler part. So I guess that's quite interesting that we've all kind of felt the same.
And I should say, ignore my results. I just answered the same to everything so that I could generate the link. So mine are sort of redundant, as it were. So yeah, interesting that the strategy column seems to have more blues and sort of purples in, cooler colours in, than, for example, the U area. So as a reminder, some of the strategy questions asked about goals and whether you've explored the role of relationships in helping you to achieve your goals, plans, whether you have a plan in place for initiating strong relationships, measurement, question about whether you have ways to measure the value of your relationships, and also a question about process. So yeah, that's really interesting. Anything else sort of standing out to anyone as we look across this map at all? Anything that you find surprising from it?
Can you go back up to the top? I can't remember the categories. Yeah, methods.
I think for me, sorry, it's Andrew. So I've come into this a bit cold. I was asked to attend this today, so I've sort of come not knowing exactly what it is, to be honest. I'm from the Coventry and Warwickshire CCG. So I guess just standing back for me, regardless of what perspective we filled this in from, and I think we might have filled it in with slightly different perspectives in terms of answering the questions, but I guess the bit that stands out for me is if you look at the first question, I think apart from yourself, Immy, who's just done it as a generic response, I think everyone's answered it as it's really important to build strong relationships at place. But the underlying message is that we don't have any mechanism, regardless of which perspective we're coming from, to go and actually how do we know how well those relationships are going? Now, I might be wrong. People might have all bar me sort of focused on this network. So apologies if it's me that's done it wrong. But I actually think that's the biggest underlying message for me to go. We're saying it's really important, but collectively we don't know where they're at. And probably, I suppose the question then is, so what?
Yeah, that's a really interesting observation there, Andrew, this idea that we've got this kind of real deep kind of individual and collective commitment to the importance of relationships, but actually the implementation through and crucially to the kind of measurement and knowing whether we have done that well is weaker or cooler. Are we seeing any other kind of areas of collective warmth? So obviously this first column around how important it is to us all personally to build good relationships is really standing out as an area of warmth. As a reminder, warmth is the other sort of orangey tones. Are we seeing any other areas of warmth here? And I'll just scroll down a little bit as well. I think this one here, actually, I'm seeing quite a few sort of oranges and pinks here. And this is in response to the question, do people have the skills and mindsets they need to build good relationships? And seeing quite a few oranges here, which suggests to me that within this group, there's, and the organizations or the services that you represent, there are the kind of the soft skills that are required to build good relationships. That's what I'm seeing from this map. Would you agree with that? Some nods.
Yeah, I think so. Immy, from my perspective, yeah, I would agree with that.
Great. How about areas of kind of collective coolness? So these are the parts on the map that have more kind of bluer tones to them. What's standing out to you here? And crucially, why do you think that might be the case?
I guess the one around, do you have a way to measure the value of relationships at your place? I guess it can be quite hard to measure, or to know how to measure. Or maybe that's just my perspective. It's not hard, but I just don't know how to do it properly. I wonder if that's wise, because other people also find it quite a difficult thing to measure, I guess. I don't know what other people think.
I suppose so. From my own perspective, I think in general we could measure things and evaluate things better. I think relationships is something I don't think I've ever known the conversation happen to say, how do we reflect relationships are currently going, or how would we measure them? I think we probably talk about relationships, but not as a collective. And I think sort of certainly with the direction of travel in general, and I'll sort of speak more from an NHS perspective, but I mean in the wider sense. So it's not just about the NHS, it's sort of coming together as a system. I think relationships tend to be seen as good when everyone's working together and things are going well. And when there's disagreement or they're not going well, the relationships aren't deemed good. But I think it's